If you're a hardcore fight fan, like you know I am, you get up for fights like this. We have Ramazan Emeev taking on Germany's David Saget.
And welcome to Zagat.
Zawada. And Matt, this is such a fun fight because for David Zawada, he's always bringing it. So far in his young UFC career, 1 and 2, he picked up a performance of the night bonus in his last time out against Abubakar Nurmagomedov. That one was a barn burner. And you look at David Zawada and you might think, okay, well, his striking's good and he'll give one to take one. This is a guy that we do not see the Luis Smolka effect from. And Matt, Luis Smolka really proving us wrong. You got to change the name on that one, so maybe we got to pick on a different fighter.
Craig.
But David Zawada, when somebody takes him down and he gets on his back, he is one of the most active fighters I think I've ever seen from guard on bottom. He just goes after arms. He'll go after your head. He'll go to switch position. He'll go to roll you over. David Zawada is always doing something. One of the most fun fighters that I feel like we don't get to see enough of, especially in this division. And you look at his debut, he's taken on Danny Roberts. That one was a fight of the night, and Danny Roberts was a big favorite in that one, I have to add. David Zawada definitely making it interesting, and while it might not have gone his way, it was a very close one. His next time out, yes, that one really didn't go his way, but again, the Nurmagomedov fight, a really good one. For Ramazan Emeev, this is a guy that, in my mind's eye, I lost a little bit of stock on him because you look at the run that he went on coming into the UFC. He had a win over Anatoly Tokov that's absolutely blowing the doors off the thing over in Bellator. And he continued to pick up really good wins in the UFC until he ended up losing to Anthony Rocco Martin, a guy that moved up from 55 to 70, had a lot of great fights, didn't go his way against Neil Magny, but that's just the way that it goes. For Ramazan Emeev, his last time out, he took on a short notice opponent in the Green Hornet Niklas Stutz. And Matt, I spent like a day, maybe an afternoon, trying to pronounce Niklas Stutz's name, watching all those German broadcasts. I got so excited for that fight, and I feel that same level for this one because Stutz had such great technique on the feet. Ramazan Emeev, you pretty much know him as a wet blanket. He's one of those fighters. If I had to, kind of lump Ramazan Emeev into a category, Emeev and Bilal Muhammad at 170 pounds. Good wrestling.
How dare you?
Decent striking. But Ramazan Emeev in that fight against Niklas Stutz decided, yeah, I'm a wrestler. Screw that. I'm just going to strike with this guy in certain points. And Ramazan Emeev showed that he wasn't just a one-trick pony. His striking was definitely there. Did he get hit sometimes? Yes, he did. Did he get tired at some points? Yes, he did. Physically looked great. His wrestling was good in that one. Stutz kept popping back up, but Emeev kept going after him. It was a good win for Emeev. Matt, this fight should be a really good one because, again, if Emeev pulls the I'm a wrestler, I'm going to take you down, international master sport in Sambo, he could do that, but David Zawada is sneaky, sneaky.
And really, this fight does begin once it does hit the mat, because I don't think we are going to see extended periods of striking between these two, because Zawada is so comfortable off of his back, and he won't be going for takedowns, or at least I wouldn't assume he'd be able to secure any if he did even go for them. Ramazan Emeev fights like one of those people who you fight in UFC 4 online, where you're just beating them up on the feet, so they decide to constantly spam takedown attempts. And even though you're defending all of them, they just keep on spamming takedown attempts. And for Emeev, it must be frustrating fighting a guy like that, because he basically glues his chest to yours for the entirety of the fight. And he has really good takedowns up against the cage. This is something, too, that I do think we have to kind of distinguish between. Ramazan Emeev can get takedowns in the center of the cage, and he can also get takedowns against the fence, whereas a lot of wrestlers in MMA, they're kind of relying on the fence to get a lot of their takedowns. They get their opponent up against to go for trips or throws or really anything from there. Emeev can get takedowns in the center of the cage, and I think that's a really important fact to bring up, because if Zawada is getting comfortable on the feet and he is starting to let his hands and even kicks go, Emeev will be able to just dart and hit him with big power double legs in the center of the cage. For Zawada, it's going to be really hard to get back up to his feet from that. I do like his activity off the bottom, and I like the fact that he does create space from his own guard, but when you're fighting a guy like Emeev, who is a big, physically strong guy at 170, it's going to be difficult to get any of that space between you to go for submissions. And Zawada has a really nice triangle choke, but he does use it more as a sweep than he will for just the submission. Of course, he can go for the submission, but that's how he kind of either gets back up to his feet or can get top position. Against a guy like Emeev, I don't really think that's going to be able to work. I know we have seen Zawada get submissions against high-level grapplers, but for Emeev, he's so positionally sound from that top position. And it's not like he is creating space himself to go for crazy ground and pound. He's a guy who will fight in that kind of Jake Shields manner if he has to, and just burn rounds. Again, we have seen Emeev strike a little bit more as his UFC career has progressed, but kind of the classic Ramazan Emeev fight to go back and watch is the Sam Alvey one. And I know it was up a weight class at 185, but he holds Sam Alvey against the cage for the majority of the fight, throws little combinations, dirty boxes a little bit, kind of, late 2000s Randy Couture, if you will.
Disco Todorovic a little.
A little. Well, but Todorovic can knock you out. And Emeev, then I'll go for the takedown once you are kind of thinking, okay, defend my head, bring my hands up. Then Emeev will go for the takedown. It's just a frustrating guy to deal with. And for Zawada, I don't know if he has the power on the feet to really prevent Emeev from closing that distance. I think he can catch him. We've seen Emeev get caught by knees because sometimes he will telegraph the takedown attempts. I don't know if Zawada has enough power, though, to really make him stand and strike with him at range. I really like this fight. I think both guys have keys to victory. I just think a lot of what Emeev does can cancel out the positives Zawada brings.
And it's one of those fights where I kind of want to see where it goes round by round. Because again, I didn't mention it because I waited. The Li Jingliang fight for David Zawada definitely wasn't one of his best. And go back and see where that fight took place. That's a little bit of foreshadowing for a fight between Li Jingliang and Santiago Ponzinibbio. But for David Zawada, boom, right to the body, compromised. Li Jingliang finishes that fight. For Ramazan Emeev, again, it's just continue to go to the well. Very exhaustive type of pace for not just him, but for his opponent, but also for him. Like, he really can tire himself out, and that's one of those things at 170 pounds you have to watch out for. So for me, I'd be waiting, maybe live after the first round. If it goes into a third round, how does David Zawada look at the end of the second going into the third? That's kind of the way I would look at this one. In terms of the overall odds, though, Matt, Ramazan Emeev opened a -210 favorite. He's now -260. For David Zawada, opened a +180. He's now at a +210. And if we have a look at the Tapology votes, 924 so far, 85% of Ramazan Emeev, 83% have him to win by the going to the well decision. Is that how you see this one going here?
Ramazan Emeev and decisions are like LeBron James and NBA titles. He's got a lot of them. And I just think Emeev, again, what he does well cancels out what Zawada does well. And if he is able to get those takedowns early especially, and he isn't working a lot for the takedowns, again, I do think as the fight progresses, Zawada will have opportunities to maybe catch a submission later on. If Emeev is getting the takedown and trying to just rest on top, Zawada might be able to find an opening. But other than that, I do just think the top pressure of Emeev is going to be too much.
I'm going to wait and see what the prop is for a Zawada submission in this one. I'm going to pass on this fight totally. But if I'm making a pick, again, I know exactly what I'm going to get out of Ramazan Emeev. Did it work against Rocco Martin? Not necessarily, it didn't. But so far, by and large, in the UFC, it has worked. Stutz, again, I think that was more of a case where it was kind of short notice. You had a guy making his UFC debut. For Ramazan Emeev and team with Goretz, you know what you're going to get more or less out of David Zawada. So I'm really looking forward to this fight, but we're both in agreement here, going with Ramazan Emeev to get the win. Very interesting fight in an ever-changing division at 170 pounds. We got a great 170-pound fight in our co-main event, Matt Brown taking on a really tough out, the former champ Carlos Condit, and in our main event, Max Holloway, Calvin Kattar. So make sure you keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt. As we always say, let's get into it.